The evening rush at Bellamy's had begun, and Sophia hurried between tables with practiced steps. The restaurant's crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white tablecloths and polished silverware. 6 months of working here, and Sophia still felt out of place among the wealthy diners who came for Chef Anton's famous cuisine. "Table 14 needs more water," called Ricky, the head waiter, as he swept past with a tray of appetizers. Sophia grabbed a crystal pitcher and made her way to the corner table where 4 business people sat in deep conversation. Their suits probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. As she refilled their glasses, she tried to be invisible, just as she'd learned to be. "And how are we finding everything?" she asked softly when they paused their conversation. 3 of them smiled and nodded, but the 4th, a man with steel gray hair and cufflinks that caught the light, barely glanced at her. "The bread is cold," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll bring fresh bread right away," Sophia replied, keeping her voice steady. "See that you do." He turned back to his companions. "As I was saying about the Henderson acquisition," Sophia hurried to the kitchen, where the comforting chaos of clattering pots and sizzling pans surrounded her. Chef Anton barked orders while line cooks moved in a choreographed dance. This world made sense to her. Everyone working together, each person important to the final result. "Fresh bread for table 14, she told Diego, who handled the bread station. "Coming right up," Diego said, sliding a basket into the oven. "Tough customers?" Sophia shrugged. "Just one. The others seem nice enough. Let me guess, guy in the gray suit? He comes in sometimes." "James Whitfield. Big shot investor or something?" Diego rolled his eyes. "Always finds something to complain about." While waiting for the bread, Sophia checked her watch. After her shift ended at 11, she still had 2 hours of practice ahead of her. Professor Chen had assigned a new piece for her piano class at the conservatory, and she was struggling with the third movement. "Order up for table 7, Chef Anton called. "I've got it," Sophia said, balancing the plates along her arm with the skill that came from years of waitressing. She delivered the meals, then returned to collect the fresh bread for table 14. When she approached James Whitfield's table again, the conversation had grown louder. "I'm telling you, we need to move on this deal now," James was saying as Sophia set down the bread basket. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" she asked. James looked up, irritation flashing across his face at the interruption. "Yes, actually. I ordered the filet medium rare. Medium rare means pink in the center, not cold." He pushed his plate toward her. Sophia glanced at the steak, perfectly cooked to medium rare as far as she could tell. "I'm sorry it's not to your liking. I'll have chef prepare a new one immediately. Please do. And perhaps this time someone competent can handle it." His words stung, but Sophia kept her expression neutral as she took the plate. One of the women at the table gave her an apologetic smile. "Don't mind him. The markets were down today." Back in the kitchen, Chef Anton examined the returned steak. "This is perfect medium rare." "What's his problem?" "I don't know," Sophia said. "But he wants a new one." The chef muttered something under his breath but started preparing a fresh steak. Some people just need to feel important by pushing others around. When Sophia returned with the new steak, James barely acknowledged her. She continued serving her other tables, refilling water glasses, bringing extra napkins, and checking that everyone was enjoying their meals. Every now and then, she caught snippets of James's conversation, something about a charity gala he was hosting the following evening at the Grand Hotel. 20 minutes later, as she cleared their dessert plates, James fixed her with a cold stare. "The service here has certainly gone downhill. I remember when Bellamy's had standards." His companions looked uncomfortable. The woman who had smiled at Sophia earlier said, "James, I thought everything was wonderful." "That's because you have low expectations." "Vivian." He reached for his wallet and dropped his credit card on the table without looking at Sophia. "When you've dined at the finest restaurants in Paris and Tokyo, you notice these things." Sophia took the card, keeping her face carefully blank. Inside, a storm brewed. She'd been working since she was 16, putting herself through community college, saving every penny for tuition at the conservatory. 2 jobs, sometimes 3, nights spent practicing piano until her fingers cramped, then getting up at dawn for early shifts, all while people like James Whitfield looked through her as if she were nothing. "I'll be right back with your receipt," she said evenly. As she processed the payment, Ricky passed by. "You okay? Whitfield giving you trouble?" "Nothing I can't handle," Sophia forced a smile. "Just another day. That's my girl." "Hey, weren't you telling me about your big audition coming up?" Sophia nodded, her eyes brightening despite her exhaustion. 2 weeks from now. Professor Chen thinks I might have a shot at the scholarship." "You'll knock 'em dead," Ricky said, squeezing her shoulder before heading off to his section. When Sophia returned with the receipt, James signed it without adding a tip. She wasn't surprised. The electronic payment system would add the automatic 18% gratuity for parties of 4 or more, but the gesture still felt deliberate. "Thank you for dining with us tonight," she said, her customer service voice firmly in place. "Have a wonderful evening." James stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Perhaps next time I'll try somewhere else." He turned to his companions. "Shall we? I've got an early meeting tomorrow about the gala preparations." They gathered their things and Sophia began clearing the table. As she stacked the dishes, she noticed a leather portfolio left behind on one of the chairs. "Excuse me," she called, but the group had already exited through the main doors. Sophia picked up the portfolio. The leather was soft and expensive, with the initials JW embossed in gold on the corner. She opened it and found documents about tomorrow's charity gala at the Grand Hotel, along with a business card for James Whitfield, CEO of Whitfield Investments. She should give it to the manager, who would probably call James to come back for it. But something, perhaps a small, petty part of her that wanted to see the look on his face when she returned it personally, made her tuck it under the counter instead. "I'll drop it off at his hotel after my shift," she told herself. The Grand Hotel was only a few blocks from her apartment, and she could use the fresh air after being inside all evening. As the night wound down and the last customers left, Sophia's thoughts drifted to her practice session ahead. The Chopin piece was giving her trouble. Her hands weren't quite large enough to reach the ambitious chord progressions without breaking them slightly. Professor Chen had suggested a technique to roll through the notes quickly, making them sound almost simultaneous. She hummed the melody under her breath as she finished her side work, filling salt shakers and rolling silverware into napkins for tomorrow's service. "Earth to Sophia," Ricky said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You're doing it again, going off to piano land while your body stays here." She laughed. "Sorry, this piece is stuck in my head." "No worries. I'm heading out. You good to finish up?" "All set. See you tomorrow." After clocking out, Sophia collected her things in the forgotten portfolio. The night air felt good on her face as she left Bellamy's, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. The streets were quieter now, though never truly silent in this part of the city. As she walked toward the Grand Hotel, she thought about James Whitfield and people like him. How easy it must be to move through the world expecting everything to be perfect, to feel entitled to snap at those you considered beneath you. She wondered what he would say when she returned his portfolio. Would he even recognize her outside the restaurant, or would she remain invisible? Just another person in service to his needs. The Grand Hotel loomed ahead, its facade lit up dramatically against the night sky. Sophia hesitated at the entrance, suddenly aware of her waitress uniform and sensible shoes, but she straightened her spine and pushed through the revolving door. She had as much right to be here as anyone, portfolio in hand or not. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and gold accents, a massive floral arrangement dominating the center. A few well-dressed people milled about despite the late hour. Sophia approached the front desk where a receptionist looked up with a practiced smile. "Good evening."
"How may I help you?"
"Good evening."
"How may I help you?"
The receptionist's eyes flicked briefly to Sophia's uniform before returning to her face. "I found this portfolio left behind at Bellamy's restaurant," Sophia explained, placing the leather folder on the counter. "It belongs to Mr. Whitfield. I believe he's hosting an event here tomorrow." The receptionist picked up the portfolio, examining the gold initials. "Yes, Mr. Whitfield is organizing our annual charity gala. Would you like me to make sure he receives this?" Sophia hesitated. After the way he'd treated her, she'd wanted to see his face when she returned it personally, maybe to prove something to herself, if not to him. But exhaustion was catching up with her, and the thought of another interaction with James Whitfield tonight suddenly felt draining. "That would be great. Thank you," she finally said. As the receptionist reached for the phone, A commotion broke out near the grand ballroom entrance. A woman in an elegant pantsuit rushed toward the front desk, her heels clicking rapidly against the marble floor. "Lisa, we have a disaster," the woman announced, stress evident in her voice. "Madeline Chen just called. Food poisoning, she won't be able to perform tomorrow." The receptionist, Lisa, gasped. "What? But the gala is less than 24 hours away." "I know." The woman ran her hands through her short hair. "Mr. Whitfield will have a fit. You know how particular he is about these events, especially with all his high-profile donors attending." Sophia stood quietly, preparing to leave, when the woman's eyes suddenly locked onto her. "Who are you?" "I was just returning Mr. Whitfield's portfolio," Sophia explained. "I'm a waitress at Bellamy's." The woman barely seemed to register her words. She was staring at Sophia with an odd expression. "Did you say Madeline Chen?" Both women looked at her in confusion. "No, Sophia started, then realized what had happened. "Oh, I have a professor named Chen at the conservatory. I just noticed the coincidence." "You're from the conservatory?" The woman's eyes lit up. "The music conservatory?" "Yes, I take night classes there. I'm studying piano." The woman and Lisa exchanged meaningful glances. "What's your name?" the woman asked. "Sophia Reyes." "Sophia, I'm Diane Powell, event coordinator here at the Grand. Tell me, how good are you?" The question caught Sophia off guard. Well, I've been playing since I was 6. I'm on scholarship at the conservatory. But I don't understand. Can you play classical pieces? Chopin? Beethoven?" Understanding dawned on Sophia. "You can't be serious." "Desperate times, desperate measures," Diane said, a hint of pleading in her eyes. "Our pianist just canceled. The gala is tomorrow night, and it's too late to find another professional on such short notice." "But I'm not a professional," Sophia protested. "I'm just a student." "A conservatory student," Diane countered. "That's better than no pianist at all. Look, it would just be background music during the cocktail hour and dinner. Nothing too demanding." Sophia thought about her cramped apartment with its second-hand upright piano, the hours she spent practicing after exhausting shifts, the scholarship she was working toward, and then she thought about James Whitfield dismissing her as if she were nothing. "What pieces would I need to play?" she heard herself asking. Relief washed over Diane's face. "Mostly light classical. We have a playlist from previous events. Could you come in tomorrow afternoon to practice on our grand piano? We can work out payment details then." "Payment? That would help with next month's tuition. I have a shift at the diner from 7 to 3, but I could come by after that." "Perfect." Diane took out her business card and scribbled something on the back. "Here's my number. Text me when you arrive, and I'll meet you at the service entrance." As Sophia took the card, the absurdity of the situation hit her. Just hours ago, James Whitfield had treated her like she was beneath him. Tomorrow she would be playing piano at his gala. "Oh, and Sophia," Diane added, "let's keep the last-minute arrangement between us. As far as anyone needs to know, you were always scheduled to perform." Sophia nodded, a strange mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling up inside her. "I should go practice." Outside the Grand, the night had grown cooler. Sophia walked briskly toward her apartment building, her mind racing. Was she really going to do this? Play at an upscale charity event filled with wealthy donors? In front of James Whitfield? The thought made her stomach clench, but another feeling pushed through the anxiety. Determination. She had been playing piano most of her life, pouring her heart into music when everything else felt uncertain. This was her chance to step out of the shadows, to be seen for her talent rather than her uniform. By the time she reached her building, a plan was forming. She would need to choose pieces she knew by heart, ones that showcased her abilities without being too technically challenging, and she would need something to wear. Her apartment was small but neat, with her piano taking up most of the living room space. Her roommate, Tina, was working the night shift at the hospital, so Sophia had the place to herself. She set her bag down and went straight to the piano, her fingers finding the keys without thought. She played scales to warm up, then dove into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, one of her comfort pieces. The familiar notes filled the small space, washing away the lingering sting of James Whitfield's remarks. When she closed her eyes, there was only the music. No rude customers, no double shifts, no worries about making rent. After an hour of practice, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Tina. "Still up? Made dinner earlier." Leftovers in fridge if you want. Sophia smiled and texted back. Thanks. Eating now. You won't believe what happened tonight. She gave Tina the condensed version while heating up the pasta dish her roommate had left. Tina's response came quickly. OMG! Secret concert pianist by night. Wear my black dress. It'll fit you. This is like a movie. The next morning came too quickly. Sophia dragged herself out of bed after too little sleep. Her dreams filled with pianos that kept moving away when she tried to play them. The diner shift passed in a blur of coffee refills and breakfast orders, her mind elsewhere. When her replacement arrived, Sophia rushed home to shower and change. Tina had left the promised black dress laid out on Sophia's bed with a note. Knock 'em dead, maestro. P.S. Borrowed some costume jewelry from the drama department. It's fake but looks amazing. The dress was simple but elegant, hitting just below the knee with a modest neckline. The costume jewelry, a pendant necklace with matching earrings, added just enough sparkle. Sophia swept her hair up into a neat bun, applied light makeup, and stepped into her one pair of decent heels. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Gone was the waitress in the practical uniform. In her place stood a woman who might actually belong at a fancy charity gala. Her phone alarm broke the spell. Time to go. She carefully packed her sheet music into a folder, though she hoped she wouldn't need it. Playing from memory would make a better impression. The Grand Hotel looked different in daylight, less intimidating somehow. Following Diane's instructions, Sophia made her way to the service entrance and texted her arrival. Minutes later, Diane appeared, looking harried but pleased to see her. Oh good, you're here, she said, ushering Sophia inside. We're setting up now. The piano is already positioned in the ballroom. They walked through back corridors, passing hotel staff carrying linens and flower arrangements. When they reached the ballroom, Sophia's steps faltered. The space was enormous, with soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. At the far end stood a gleaming black grand piano, larger and more beautiful than any she had ever played. That's a Steinway concert grand, she whispered, almost afraid to touch it. Diane nodded. Only the best for our events. Go ahead, try it out while the staff finishes setting up. I need to check on the catering anyway. Left alone with the magnificent instrument, Sophia approached it reverently. She sat on the bench, adjusting its height, and placed her hands on the cool keys. Taking a deep breath, she began to play. The sound was incredible, rich and resonant, filling the ballroom with perfect clarity. She started with something simple, just to get a feel for the action of the keys, then moved into Debussy's Clair de Lune. The piano responded to her touch, as if it knew her intentions before her fingers. She was so absorbed in the music that she didn't notice Diane had returned, until she heard applause. That was beautiful, Diane said, walking over. I think we'll be just fine tonight. They spent the next hour going over the event schedule. Sophia would play during the cocktail hour from 6 to 7, take a short break while speeches were made, then continue during dinner from 7:30 until 9. Just background music, nothing too showy, Diane explained. These people will be talking business and making donations. You're the sophisticated ambiance, not the main attraction. Sophia nodded, somewhat relieved. I should head home to rest before tonight. Of course. Be back by 5:30, dressed and ready. Enter through the main doors. You're not staff tonight, you're talent. Diane handed her a small envelope. This is half your fee up front. The rest after the event. Outside, Sophia opened the envelope and gasped at the amount, more than she'd make in 2 weeks at either of her jobs. For playing piano, something she would have done for free. As she walked home, a new thought occurred to her. Would James Whitfield recognize her? Or would he see only what he expected to see? A pianist, not a waitress. Either way, tonight would be interesting. Very interesting indeed. The Grand Hotel's entrance looked even more imposing at 5:15 that evening. Sophia paused on the sidewalk, watching well-dressed people arrive in luxury cars. For a moment, her courage wavered. What was she thinking? These were not her people. This was not her world. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tina. You there yet? Remember, you belong there. Your music is just as good as anyone's. Better, actually. Send pics. Sophia smiled, tucked her phone away, and straightened her shoulders. Tina was right. Her music belonged anywhere. Taking a deep breath, she walked up the marble steps and through the main doors. The lobby had transformed since last night. Staff in formal attire directed guests toward the ballroom. Elaborate flower arrangements perfumed the air, and soft lighting created a warm glow. Sophia approached a young man with a tablet who was checking names. "Good evening," she said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "I'm Sophia Reyes, the pianist for tonight." He consulted his tablet. Ms. Reyes, yes, you're on the list. Diane asked me to direct you to the green room first. It's down that hallway, third door on the left." Sophia followed his directions, passing guests in evening gowns and tuxedos who barely glanced at her. The green room was a small but elegant space with comfortable seating, a mirror and a table with bottles of water and light refreshments. Diane was inside, speaking urgently into her phone. "No, we need them now, not in an hour," she was saying. When she saw Sophia, relief flooded her face. "I have to go. Just make it happen." She ended the call and smiled. "You're here. And you look perfect. How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Sophia admitted. "But ready? Good. We've had a small change of plans. Mr. Whitfield wants to kick off the evening with a special piece, something impressive to set the tone before guests begin mingling." Diane handed her a sheet of music. "Can you play this?" Sophia looked down at the pages. Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the piano repertoire. Also, by coincidence, the very piece she had been practicing for her upcoming recital at the conservatory. "Yes," she said, hardly believing her luck. "I know this piece well. Wonderful. You'll start with this at 6 sharp, then transition to the background pieces we discussed." Diane checked her watch. "You have about 30 minutes before we need you at the piano. Water? Snack?" "Water would be great, thanks." After Diane left, Sophia sat down and closed her eyes. She visualized the piece, her fingers moving slightly as she mentally played through the more difficult passages. Professor Chen had taught her this technique, to practice in the mind when a piano wasn't available. A knock at the door interrupted her concentration. "10 minutes, Ms. Reyes," called a staff member. Sophia stood, checked her appearance in the mirror, and took a final sip of water. This was it, the moment she would step out of the shadows and into the spotlight, if only for a brief time. The ballroom had filled with guests during her time in the green room. At least 100 people in formal attire mingled, champagne glasses in hand. The lighting had dimmed slightly, with pin spots highlighting the floral centerpieces on round tables and the grand piano on its small raised platform. As Sophia made her way to the instrument, few people noticed her. She was, after all, just the entertainment, a backdrop to their important conversations about money and influence. She sat at the bench, adjusted its height, and arranged her dress. A microphone stand had been placed near the piano. Diane approached it, tapping lightly to get attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grand Hotel's annual Children's Hospital Benefit Gala. Your host for this evening, Mr. James Whitfield, has prepared a wonderful night of generosity and community. To begin our celebration, please enjoy a performance of Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor, performed by Ms. Sophia Reyes." There was polite applause as Diane stepped away. Sophia took a deep breath, positioned her hands, and began to play. The opening notes hung in the air, gentle, questioning. Then came the answer, stronger, more insistent. Sophia felt the familiar sense of disappearing into the music, her surroundings fading as her fingers found each note with precision. As the piece progressed, the conversations in the room gradually quieted. The ballade built in intensity, moving from its deceptively simple beginning to crashing waves of notes. Sophia's hands flew across the keys, her body swaying slightly with the emotional pull of the music. This was why she practiced until her fingers cramped, why she worked double shifts to pay for lessons, why she squeezed in practice sessions between jobs and classes, for this feeling. This connection between composer, performer, and listener. This magic. The final section of the ballade was a technical storm, demanding every ounce of skill she possessed. Sophia leaned into it, embracing the challenge, letting the music pour through her. The final chords resonated through the ballroom, powerful and definitive. Then, silence. Sophia lowered her hands to her lap, suddenly aware of her surroundings again. Had she made mistakes? She couldn't remember. All she knew was that she had played with her whole heart. The silence broke with applause. Not the polite, obligatory kind she had expected, but enthusiastic and genuine. She stood and bowed slightly, her cheeks warm with a mix of exertion and embarrassment at being the center of attention. As she sat back down to begin the softer background pieces for the cocktail hour, she noticed a disturbance near the ballroom entrance. James Whitfield had arrived, surrounded by the same associates she had served at Bellamy's the night before. He was nodding and shaking hands as he made his way into the room. Sophia began playing Debussy's Arabesque, keeping her head down, focusing on the keys. From the corner of her eye, she could see Diane approaching James, speaking animatedly, gesturing toward the piano. Was she telling him about the last-minute replacement? Would he connect the elegant pianist with the waitress he had dismissed? She continued playing as the cocktail hour progressed, moving through her prepared selections of Satie, more Debussy, and some lighter Chopin pieces. Guests resumed their conversations using her music as a sophisticated backdrop. Occasionally, someone would pause near the piano, listening more intently before moving on. During a brief pause between pieces, Sophia heard a voice that made her fingers stumble on the keys. The pianist. Who is she? James Whitfield stood a few feet away, speaking to Diane. His back was to Sophia, but she would recognize that dismissive tone anywhere. Her name is Sophia Reyes, Diane replied. We were lucky to get her on short notice when Madeline canceled. She's remarkable, said James. That opening Chopin piece was, well, I haven't heard it played with such feeling in years. Is she from the symphony? She's a student at the City Conservatory, Diane said. Very talented. I'd like to meet her during the break. Sophia quickly turned her attention back to the piano as James moved away to greet more guests. Her heart was pounding. He hadn't recognized her yet, but he would once they were face to face. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur of music and nervous anticipation. Sophia played on autopilot, her mind racing ahead to the coming confrontation. What would she say? How would he react? When Diane signaled that it was time for her break during the speeches, Sophia's legs felt unsteady as she stood. She made her way toward the side door that led back to the green room, hoping to have a few minutes alone to collect herself. Ms. Reyes. James Whitfield's voice stopped her in her tracks. She turned slowly to face him, chin raised slightly. Recognition didn't dawn immediately. He smiled, extending his hand. James Whitfield, I wanted to thank you personally for your performance. The Chopin was extraordinary. Sophia took his hand, noting the expensive watch on his wrist, the perfect tailoring of his tuxedo. Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. I'm glad you enjoyed it. More than enjoyed. I was moved. Are you performing anywhere else this season? I have friends on the symphony board who should hear you play. She held his gaze steadily. Actually, we've met before. Confusion crossed his face. He studied her more carefully, taking in her features, trying to place her. Last night, she said quietly, at Bellamy's. I was your server. The transformation of his expression would have been comical under different circumstances. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then embarrassment as he finally connected the poised pianist before him with the waitress he had belittled. He started, then stopped. The waitress? With the cold bread and the steak that wasn't medium rare enough, she finished for him. Yes, that was me. His associates had wandered over, curious about the conversation. The woman named Vivian joined them, champagne in hand. James, aren't you going to introduce us to the talented pianist? James seemed at a loss for words, a state Sophia suspected was rare for him. She extended her hand to Vivian. Sophia Reyes, we actually met last night. I served your table at Bellamy's. Vivian's eyebrows shot up. You're the waitress? And you play like that? My goodness. I work 2 jobs to pay for my studies at the conservatory, Sophia explained, finding unexpected confidence in their surprise. Well, Vivian said, raising her glass slightly. You're wasted as a waitress, my dear. That was some of the finest playing I've heard in years. Diane appeared at Sophia's elbow. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we need Ms. Reyes back at the piano for the dinner music. As Sophia turned to go, James finally found his voice. Ms. Reyes, Sophia, I owe you an apology for my behavior last night. It was inexcusable. She paused, looking back at him, the mighty James Whitfield humbled and uncomfortable, but she took no pleasure in his discomfort. Thank you for saying so, Mr. Whitfield. If you'll excuse me, I have more music to play. With that, she walked back to the piano, feeling dozens of curious eyes on her. The story was spreading through the ballroom. The waitress who could play Chopin like a virtuoso. The server who had been treated poorly by their host and was now the star of his gala. As Sophia took her seat at the piano again, she realized something had shifted inside her. For years, she had felt caught between two worlds, the service jobs that paid her bills and the music that fed her soul. Tonight, those worlds had collided, and somehow she was still standing. Sophia's fingers moved over the keys with renewed confidence as she played through dinner. The weight of secrecy had lifted, replaced by something unexpected, a sense of pride. Whispers traveled around the ballroom. Faces turned toward her with new interest, but she focused on the music, letting it speak for her. Near the dessert course, she noticed an older man approaching the piano. He stood quietly to the side, listening intently, his eyes closed. Unlike the other guests, his attention was fully on the music, not on the gossip surrounding her identity. When she finished the piece, he nodded appreciatively. "Debussy's touch with a hint of your own interpretation," he said. "Lovely." "Thank you," Sophia replied during the brief pause between pieces. "I'm Thomas Reynolds, director of the conservatory, and you must be Sophia Reyes. Professor Chen has mentioned you." Sophia nearly missed the opening notes of her next piece. The director of the conservatory was here, and Professor Chen had spoken about her? "It's an honor to meet you, sir," she managed, continuing to play softly. "The honor is mine." I wondered why the name on the program seemed familiar. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I understand there's quite a story unfolding this evening." Heat rose to Sophia's cheeks. Word travels fast. In these circles, faster than music, his eyes twinkled. "But it's your playing that's caught my attention, not the gossip. We have a scholarship committee meeting next week. I think you should apply." "I thank you," Sophia stammered. "I will." He placed a business card on top of the piano. "Come see me Monday morning. We'll discuss it further." As he walked away, Sophia felt a flutter of hope. The scholarship could change everything. Fewer work hours, more practice time, maybe even a chance at the competitive summer program in Europe that had always seemed like an impossible dream. The rest of the dinner service passed in a pleasant daze. By 9 o'clock, when Sophia played her final piece, the atmosphere in the ballroom had transformed. The initial shock of her identity had given way to genuine appreciation, with several guests approaching to compliment her playing. Diane appeared as Sophia gathered her sheet music. "You were wonderful," she said, handing Sophia an envelope. "The rest of your payment plus a bonus," Mr. Whitfield insisted. "Thank you." Sophia accepted the envelope, unsure how to feel about James's gesture. Was it genuine appreciation or just guilt? "There's a small reception for the major donors in the Azalea room," Diane continued. "Mr. Whitfield has asked if you would join them for a few minutes." Sophia hesitated. Part of her wanted to flee, to return to her apartment and process the events of the evening in peace. But another part, the part that had stepped onto the Grand Hotel's marble floors with her chin held high, was curious. "Just for a few minutes," she agreed. The Azalea room was smaller than the ballroom, with plush seating and subdued lighting. About 20 people mingled, drinking champagne and nibbling on petit four. Conversations paused briefly as she entered, then resumed with heightened energy. Vivian approached immediately, taking Sophia's arm as if they were old friends. "There you are! I was just telling everyone about your remarkable talent. You must tell us. How does one go from serving tables to playing Chopin like a virtuoso?" The question, though bluntly put, seemed genuinely curious rather than condescending. "Practice," Sophia answered simply. "Lots of it whenever I can find the time between shifts." "Extraordinary dedication," said a man Sophia didn't recognize. "Most people your age are glued to their phones." "Well, I have a very old phone," she replied with a smile. "So there's not much to be glued to." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Sophia found herself at the center of a circle of interested listeners as she answered questions about her musical background, her studies, and her work schedule. 6 in the morning until 3 at the diner, then 4 to 11 at Bellamy's 3 nights a week, she explained, with classes and practice sessions in between. "Good heavens," someone murmured. "When do you sleep?" "Sleep is overrated," Sophia joked, though the truth wasn't far off. She noticed James standing at the edge of the group, listening but not participating. When there was a lull in the conversation, he stepped forward. "May I borrow Ms. Reyes for a moment?" he asked, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the room. The group parted, and Sophia followed him, curious about what he might say now that they were past the initial shock of recognition. "I want to apologize again. he began when they were relatively private. Not just for last night, but for not seeing you. Sophia remained silent, letting him find his words. I've been thinking about it all evening, he continued. How many times have I looked right through people like you? People working hard, with talents and dreams I never bothered to consider because they were serving my food or parking my car or cleaning my hotel room. He seemed genuinely troubled by the realization, which surprised her. We all have blind spots, Mr. Whitfield, she said carefully. It's what we do when they're pointed out that matters. James, please. He paused, considering his next words. Thomas Reynolds is an old friend of mine. I heard him talking with you at the piano. About the scholarship, Sophia confirmed. Yes, the conservatory's full scholarship is quite competitive. Only 2 students receive it each year. I'm aware, she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. Did he think she wasn't good enough? I don't mean to suggest. He stopped, then tried again. What I'm trying to say is that your talent deserves support. I'd like to establish a new scholarship at the conservatory for working students like yourself who are juggling jobs while pursuing their musical education. Sophia blinked in surprise. That's very generous. It's the least I can do. And selfishly, I'd like to hear you play again. Perhaps at the symphony fundraiser next month. I'm on the board, as it happens. Before she could respond, Director Reynolds joined them, champagne glass in hand. I see James has cornered you. Has he mentioned his new scholarship idea yet? He's been bending my ear about it for the past 20 minutes. We were just discussing it, Sophia confirmed, still processing the sudden turn of events. It's a wonderful initiative, Reynolds said. And you, my dear, would be the perfect first recipient. A sort of test case for the program. I couldn't accept, she started. Nonsense, James interrupted. Consider it reparation for my behavior. Besides, the scholarship will continue long after you've graduated. Think of all the students like yourself who could benefit. Reynolds nodded enthusiastically. Working students with exceptional talent often fall through the cracks in our system. They have the ability but not the time to practice, audition, and perform as much as their privileged peers. This could level the playing field. Put that way, it was difficult to object. Sophia thought of her cramped practice schedule, the constant exhaustion, the times she'd nearly fallen asleep during lessons after double shifts. If it would help other students like me, she said slowly, then I'd be honored to be part of it. Excellent. Reynolds beamed. We'll work out the details on Monday. And James, I'll have the legal department draw up the endowment papers next week. As Reynolds wandered off to refill his glass, Sophia found herself alone with James again. The awkwardness between them had shifted into something different. Not quite comfortable, but no longer antagonistic. Why? She asked simply. James considered the question. Because you made me see something I've been missing. And because talent like yours shouldn't be sidelined by economic necessity. He hesitated, then added, and perhaps because you reminded me of myself, a little. At her questioning look, he continued, I wasn't always. He gestured vaguely at his expensive tuxedo. My father was a janitor at the university. I worked nights to put myself through business school. Sophia hadn't expected this revelation. The James Whitfield she'd served at Bellamy's seemed born to wealth and privilege. Life has a way of making us forget where we came from, he said quietly. Success can be a kind of amnesia. Tonight was a necessary reminder. Before Sophia could respond, Diane appeared at her elbow. I'm sorry to interrupt, but your friend is here to pick you up, Ms. Reyes. She's waiting in the lobby. Tina, Sophia explained to James. My roommate. I should go. I have an early shift tomorrow. Of course. He extended his hand. Thank you for your music tonight and for a lesson I won't soon forget. Sophia shook his hand, finding his grip firmer and more genuine than their earlier handshake. Thank you for the opportunity and for what you're doing with the scholarship. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Will you still be at Bellamy's next week? I'm bringing some symphony board members for dinner. A smile tugged at her lips. I'll be there. But I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific about how you want your steak cooked. His surprised laugh followed her out of the azalea room. In the lobby, Tina was waiting, practically bouncing with excitement. Well, she demanded as soon as she saw Sophia. How was it? Did they love you? Did that rude guy recognize you? Tell me everything. Sophia linked arms with her friend as they walked toward the exit. It was transformative. she said, trying to find words for the evening's events. And yes, he recognized me eventually. Was he totally embarrassed? Please tell me he was mortified. He was, Sophia confirmed, but then something unexpected happened. As they stepped out into the cool night air, Sophia began to relate the story. The applause after Chopin, the meeting with Director Reynolds, the scholarship offer. Tina listened with wide eyes, gasping at all the right moments. So basically, she summarized as they waited for the bus, you went from being mocked by this rich guy to changing his entire worldview and getting a scholarship named after you? All in one night? When put like that, it did sound like something from a movie. But Sophia knew the reality was more nuanced. Years of hard work and sacrifice had prepared her for this moment of opportunity. Not named after me, she corrected. It's for working students. I'm just the first one. Still, Tina insisted, it's like some kind of fairy tale. Except instead of a glass slipper, you had mad piano skills. Sophia laughed, the tension of the evening finally releasing. I still have to work tomorrow, you know. Both jobs. Nothing's changing overnight. But it will change, Tina said confidently. This is just the beginning. As the bus approached, Sophia took one last look at the Grand Hotel, its windows glowing warmly against the night sky. Just 24 hours ago, she had entered those doors as an invisible person, returning a forgotten portfolio. Tonight, she was leaving as a musician who had been heard, really heard, perhaps for the first time. Yes, she agreed, stepping onto the bus. I think it is. 3 months later, Sophia stood in the wings of the city concert hall, her heart pounding against her ribs. The black concert dress she wore was new, a gift from Tina to celebrate her first solo performance with the Youth Symphony Orchestra. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the hall filling with people, the soft murmur of their conversations floating up to where she waited. Nervous? Asked Professor Chen, appearing at her side. Terrified, Sophia admitted. What if I forget the piece? What if I hit wrong notes? What if— You won't, Professor Chen said firmly. You've practiced this concerto until your fingers could play it in your sleep. Besides, a few wrong notes never killed anyone. Tell that to my knees, Sophia said with a shaky laugh. They feel like they might give out any second. That's just your body preparing you to perform. Channel that energy into the music. Professor Chen squeezed her shoulder. Remember what we talked about. The audience wants you to succeed. No one is sitting there hoping you'll fail. Sophia nodded, taking a deep breath. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of change. After her meeting with Director Reynolds, she'd been awarded the first Whitfield Working Musician Scholarship, which covered not only her tuition, but also provided a monthly stipend. For the first time since she began at the conservatory, she had been able to reduce her work hours, keeping just her weekend shifts at Bellamy's. With more time to practice and study, her playing had improved dramatically. Professor Chen had recommended her for the Youth Symphony's annual showcase, where promising students performed alongside professional musicians. When Sophia had been selected to play Grieg's Piano Concerto in a minor, a major honor for any student, she could hardly believe it. 5 minutes, called the stage manager, passing by with a clipboard. Professor Chen gave her one last encouraging nod before heading out to find her seat in the audience. Sophia closed her eyes, mentally reviewing the opening of the concerto. The famous crashing chords that began the piece had intimidated her at first, but now they felt like old friends under her fingers. Ready? The voice made her open her eyes. James Whitfield stood a few feet away, looking distinguished in a dark suit. Over the past months, they had developed a cautious friendship. James had kept his word about the scholarship, working closely with Director Reynolds to establish the program, which would support 5 working students each year. He had also become a regular at Bellamy's on Friday nights when Sophia still worked her dinner shift. As ready as I'll ever be, she told him. I wanted to wish you luck before taking my seat, he said. The hall is packed, by the way. I may have mentioned your performance to a few influential friends. A few? Sophia raised an eyebrow. The front 3 rows are filled with symphony board members and their families. James smiled a bit sheepishly. They needed to hear you play. Trust me, after tonight you'll have more opportunities than you can handle. Before she could respond, the orchestra began tuning on stage, the sound of the oboe's A note cutting through the background noise. That's my cue to go, James said, Remember, you've earned this moment. Every bit of it. As he left, Sophia thought about his words. Had she earned this? Or had it fallen into her lap because of one lucky night at the gala? The old doubts tried to resurface, but she pushed them away. Luck might have opened a door, but it was her years of hard work that had prepared her to walk through it. 2 minutes, Ms. Reyes, the stage manager said. The conductor is about to go on. The audience applauded as the conductor entered and took his place at the podium. Sophia watched from behind the curtain as he bowed, then turned to the orchestra. They began the brief introduction to the concerto, the tension building toward her entrance. This was it, the moment she had dreamed about since she was a little girl picking out melodies on her grandmother's old upright piano. Ms. Reyes, whispered the stage manager. You're on. Sophia walked onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. She made her way to the grand piano, conscious of hundreds of eyes following her progress. When she reached the bench, she turned to face the audience, bowing as she had practiced. The applause felt like a wave washing over her. As she sat down and adjusted the bench, she spotted familiar faces in the audience. Tina in the 5th row, practically vibrating with excitement. Professor Chen near the front, her expression serene and confident. Director Reynolds with his wife, both smiling encouragingly. And James watching intently, from his seat among the board members. But there were other faces too, faces she recognized. From the diner and from Bellamy's. Diego from the bread. Station and Ricky the head waiter sat together near the back. The morning hostess from the diner had come with her husband. Even the stern-faced chef Anton was there, looking slightly uncomfortable in a suit jacket that seemed too tight across the shoulders. Sophia felt a lump form in her throat. Her worlds were no longer colliding. They had merged into one. These people from different parts of her life had come together to support her. The conductor turned toward her, a question in his eyes. She nodded, signaling she was ready. He raised his baton, and in that suspended moment before the music began, Sophia felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. Then she brought her hands down for the opening chords, filling the hall with sound. The concerto passed in a blur. Sophia's fingers found each note with precision and passion, the hours of practice paying off in this moment of performance. The connection with the orchestra felt natural and intuitive, as if they had played together for years rather than the few rehearsals they'd actually had. When the final movement reached its triumphant conclusion, Sophia's hands came to rest as the orchestra played the final notes. For a heartbeat, silence filled the concert hall, that magical moment between the end of the music and the beginning of the response. Then the audience erupted in applause and cheers. They rose to their feet, a wave of standing ovations spreading from the front rows to the back of the hall. Sophia stood, her legs steadier than she had expected, and bowed deeply. The conductor extended his hand, inviting her to acknowledge the orchestra, which she did with another bow. The applause continued, washing over her like sunlight. After 3 curtain calls, Sophia finally made her way backstage, where she was immediately surrounded by fellow students and faculty from the conservatory. Their congratulations blended together in her overwhelmed state, but their genuine enthusiasm warmed her heart. "Excuse me, coming through." Tina's voice cut through the crowd as she pushed her way forward, throwing her arms around Sophia. "You were incredible. I cried twice, and you know I never cry." Sophia laughed, hugging her friend tightly. "Thanks for coming. It meant everything to see you there." "Are you kidding? Wild horses couldn't have kept me away." As the crowd thinned, Director Reynolds approached with an elegant older woman at his side. "Sophia, I'd like you to meet Eleanor Prescott, director of the Summer International Piano Program." Sophia's breath caught. The Summer International Program was one of the most prestigious in the world, accepting only 12 pianists each year from thousands of applicants. "Ms. Reyes," Eleanor said, extending her hand. "Your performance tonight was remarkable. Thomas has told me about your unusual journey, and I must say, I'm impressed by your dedication as much as your talent." "Thank you," Sophia managed, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's an honor to meet you. The honor is mine. We're still reviewing applications for this summer's program, but I'd like to offer you a place now if you're interested." Sophia stared at her, momentarily speechless. The Summer International had been a distant dream, something she'd planned to apply for years down the road. When she felt more prepared, "She's interested," Tina answered for her. Giving Sophia a gentle nudge, "Yes," Sophia confirmed. "Yes, I'm very interested. Thank you for this opportunity. After making arrangements to speak further the following week, Eleanor and Director Reynolds moved on, leaving Sophia and Tina momentarily alone. Did that just happen? Sophia asked, dazed. It absolutely did, Tina confirmed, and you deserve every bit of it. Before they could say more, Ricky, Diego, and the others from Bellamy's approached, each offering congratulations and hugs. Chef Anton awkwardly presented her with a small box of handmade chocolates. From all of us, he said gruffly. We're proud of you, kid. Sophia felt tears threatening as she thanked them. These people had become a sort of family over the years, witnessing her struggles firsthand. James was the last to approach, waiting until the others had drifted toward the reception area. That, he said simply, was magnificent. Thank you, Sophia replied. And not just for coming tonight. For everything these past few months, he shook his head. You did all the hard work long before I came into the picture. I just helped remove a few obstacles. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both recognizing how far they'd come from that night at Bellamy's. I heard Eleanor Prescott offer you a spot in the Summer International, James said finally. Congratulations. It's well deserved. I still can't quite believe it, Sophia admitted. 3 months ago, I was working double shifts and practicing on the conservatory pianos after hours because my upright at home was having issues with the sustain pedal. And now you're where you belong. James finished for her. On the concert stage, Tina reappeared, linking her arm through Sophia's. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a whole room of people waiting to tell you how amazing you are, and I am not about to let you miss your moment in the spotlight. As they walked toward the reception, Sophia found herself thinking about the strange twists of fate that had led her here. If James hadn't left his portfolio that night, if she hadn't returned it personally, if Madeline Chen hadn't gotten food poisoning, but perhaps it wasn't fate after all. Perhaps it was the thousands of hours she'd spent at the piano, the sacrifices she'd made, the determination to pursue music despite the obstacles. Perhaps she had been preparing for this moment all along without knowing it. What's going on in that head of yours? Tina asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Sophia smiled. Just thinking that sometimes the most difficult paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Ahead, the reception room hummed with voices and laughter, filled with people who had come to hear her play, not as a background pianist at a charity gala, but as herself, Sophia Reyes, concert pianist. Well, said Tina, pausing at the doorway, ready for your new life to begin? Sophia took a deep breath and nodded. More than ready. Together they stepped through the door.